Yo, Pierre, you want to come out here?
And guys, welcome to another episode of the Opportunity Knocks podcast. I am your guest host, Brendan Quinlan today. Your usual host is currently in Portugal. But guys, we have a very special guest today. He comes from the University of Western Ontario at the Ivey Business School. He is a practitioner turned professor. He has had many of his own ventures and businesses that he started over the years. I mean, this is the longest intro that I've had for somebody. So I'm just going to try and hit on some of these points, Eric, to not embarrass you too much. But he is the former CRO at Intellitix, which was a wristband software platform that worked with some music festivals that you may have heard of, such as Coachella, Boots and Hearts, etc. He has then taken his professional career, which again was a lot of different businesses that he was able to scale to size that are in retail, tech, music, events, you name it. And he was able to transition into giving back and starting to teach these skills formally at a university, which, as we know, which is sadly underserved in our universities in Canada. So I've been talking this guy into coming down and doing this pod with us for about 3 years now. I've been chasing him. He's a busy man, and he's generous enough today to give us his time to talk to us about that. So Eric, thank you so much for joining us on the Opportunity Knocks podcast.
No problem. Good to be here. You got to say, you're walking the talk. You know, if at first it's a no, some might say you heard no, others are like, no, that means not right now. You stayed on it. We followed up. We kept in touch, found the right time, and we made it work. So
we just call that a smoke screen. It wasn't even an objection. It was just a, not right now. So that means that a good sales rep will stay on you. But again, sincerely appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come in and work with us today. I have so many questions. Obviously, I've mentioned this, but teaching sales is my passion. It is what I love to do. I studied to be a teacher, got away from teaching gym class, but got into the business of teaching sales. And to see somebody who's taking the formal approach to that and doing it at the university level, that's inspiring. So tell us about that journey, man. How did you get started at these universities, which again, I mean, that's not easy to get something like this off the ground at a prestigious institution like Ivey.
Yeah. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur from a young age, and was, like a lot of the folks probably listening, cutting grass, knocking door to door. Nice. I kind of did it at a young age, and went to business school, ran my own businesses through business school. And at the end of what I thought was the best business education in the country, I went to Ivey as a student.
Heck yeah.
Realized that if I wanted to start a business or join a growing business, I had some of the skills, but I was missing two of the really critical ones. So I think in any early and growth stage business, two critical business functions. You're either building something that people want, have a product for you guys, pest control.
Yeah.
And sell it, right? You've got to get that into the hands of customers. I wasn't a builder. I mean, I could, but I wasn't a coder. I had no programming skills. So the value that I could add to a business was on the sales side, the revenue growth side. So I think that stuck with me, that I paid as much money as I did to go into debt to go to what I thought was the best business school in the country, and didn't learn the skills that I needed to be successful or to contribute to a growing startup.
So I think interesting.
I think that stuck with me.
Yeah.
And so went on to spend most of my career learning, screwing a lot up, messing up, learning from peers, reading every book, going to every conference, and eventually kind of figuring it out. And I think at the end of that 15-year journey, thought 80% of this, I bet you I can bottle up and teach to people way earlier in their career. So it kind of started as what if I bottled up the 80% that had the biggest impact for me?
Yeah.
And come back and start teaching it either as a boot camp or a workshop.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
Yeah.
And gradually kind of grew that into a full-time opportunity at Ivey.
Talk to me about some of those boot camps and what did they look like? What were some of the first step things that you were trying to teach with those boot camps and getting started, your foot in the door, so to speak, at the universities?
I think it was, this is what trying to grow a business actually looks like.
Nice.
Nice. How are you want to grow revenue? What does that mean? You learn 4 P's in business school. Okay, but once you write down what the price is going to be, you think about how you're going to promote it. What does the actual work look like of growing revenue? So tactically, how do you capture someone's attention who's getting 100 emails a day? How do you write a good cold email?
Yeah.
How do you, whether it's knock on a door or walk into an office in New York City and try to get a meeting with the CMO? So how do you get someone's attention? Once you have their attention, how do you diagnose pain or problem quickly and understand if there's a good fit? How do you prescribe a solution based on your diagnosis of their problem? And then how do you work them through to actually close and implement that solution? Dang. So I think it started really around those. How do you write a good cold email or get someone's attention, ask good questions, listen, prescribe the solution, and then close?
I love that. And how was the response initially and since then?
It's always been good. I have to say that it's always been good.
Yeah.
There are 2 ways that people get back to teach at a higher ed institution. Both of them are good paths. You need to be an expert. Okay, so you either become an expert by studying something really deeply, the PhD route. You dedicate 5 to 10 years of your life to conducting your own research, studying other people's research, and you become an expert in that.
Right.
Or you can go do it. Go do it for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Learn on your own.
Yeah.
And so I think having done it on my own for 10 or 15 years and coming back to talk about what that journey was like at a relatively young age is unique. So kudos to Ivey for giving me a shot to do that.
Yeah, honestly. And what type, so I understand that it was received very favorably with the students, but what about the university? Was that tough sledding, getting this off the ground? And was it met with a fair amount of resistance? And if so, why?
Again, kudos to Ivey.
Yeah.
I've never been told no to anything.
Wow.
Really any new...
Is that just because you're a good salesman though?
Maybe that's true. I don't know. I think any idea, program, initiative that I want to start, my team has been really, really supportive of it. So I've never feel like any of my ideas are completely shot down. That said, universities aren't startups. They move slow.
Yeah.
There's some navigation to do.
For sure.
They're frenemies, right? They're colleagues, but also you're kind of competing for the interest or the attention of students.
Interesting. I've actually never viewed it that way between professors.
Right. Students have credits to bid on courses.
True.
And if they're coming to more butts and seats in one course versus another, you're like, oh, what's going on there? How is he's taking courses, taking students from my course. Yeah. So I think there's politics to navigate there. But overall, the administration has been super receptive. The students, though, have been the hunger's there. I think the opportunity to learn something that they can use right away,
immediately,
that alone is a big differentiator. Yeah. So they love it, and to learn it from people who still remember what it's like to be 20 years old.
Yeah.
Whether that's the guests that I bring in or me, here's relevant and useful stuff that you can use right now.
That's right. And so talk to me about some of the numbers that we talked about before we started recording, just in relation to the number of students that go into sales and so hit on that a little bit.
Yeah. In North America, 50% of all college grads end up in a sales role at some point in their career. So that's half of all college grads.
Wow.
80% of marketing grads end up in a sales role immediately on graduation. First job they have out of school. And yet 2% of higher ed institutions teach any form of
Is that in North America?
North America.
Wow. And any difference between Canada and the US?
I would say, I don't have the numbers exactly, but it's even less popular in Canada than it is in the US.
What can students do? Anything?
I think students are doing things. Yeah. There's student-run sales clubs.
Yes.
They're even better if they're sponsored by faculty and the faculty can teach courses around it. But I think, again, bottoms up, right? I came back to Ivey to start running boot camps before Ivey had any sales programming. Students can run their own sales clubs. They can be part of sales competitions. Yeah. They should bring in practitioners who show them what a sales career can look like. So they can do that on their own.
Dang. And then what about just sales in general. I know one of the things that you talk about, I watched your TED Talk, which was awesome. You guys got to check that out. And one of the
Life's a pitch.
Yeah.
Check it out. Life's
That's
a pitch.
Right. There it is. And guys, sincerely, there's so much that you can pick up from that. But just to talk about sales in general. So for somebody that's not going into sales and they view themselves as, going into another profession of any kind, what benefits do they take away from your courses, if any?
Most of my students won't be salespeople, at least not right out of graduation, or carry a quota, let's say. They're all going to be salespeople. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
So typically out of Ivey, there's 3 really popular careers. There's investment banking.
Yep.
It's like Wolf of Wall Street stuff.
Yes.
There's consulting. So you go work for a McKinsey or Bain or BCG. And there's accounting. Those are the big 3. There are other jobs. You go work for a startup in product management. You go work at sales at Salesforce. There's a bunch of other jobs, but those are the big 3.
Yeah.
So knowing that most of my students will actually not be full-time salespeople right away, my course isn't how to crush it as a B2B salesperson. It's how do we take the principles of sales and apply it to your life. So it's called Sales Foundations.
Cool.
So when you think about probably the first sales you're going to need to do are, how do you sell yourself in a job interview? I mean, the question you need to answer is, if they're going to interview 200 other people, why should they choose you over everybody else?
Yeah.
So how do you sell yourself? If you want to be an investment banker, you grind 80, 100 hours a week working on PowerPoints and Excel sheets. And then at some point, if you want to stick with it and make the real money, you become a partner. Guess what partners do? They sell.
Yeah.
They're selling the next big deal. You want to be a consultant. All my friends now who are becoming partners at these big consulting firms, I get the call when they say, shoot, I didn't realize this, but I just made partner. My job actually is no longer to be a consultant, it's to sell. So what I try to get across is, like, even if you're not going to go into sales right away, there are principles of selling that are universally applicable.
Yeah. And so how does that look? Do you do that through demos, role plays, and in class? Like, how is that formally taught? Because I think maybe that's the barrier for some schools. They just think that maybe that can't be formally taught.
Yeah. So there's a great quote. I think it's a Sandler sales quote, that you can't teach a kid to ride a bike at a seminar.
Nice.
Like, I can edutain for 20, 30 minutes at a time.
Sure.
But to stand up there and lecture for a whole year, it's just not going to work. Right.
Okay.
So you need to mix it up.
Yeah.
So there's some edutainment. There's some storytelling.
Sure. Yeah.
Here's kind of what I learned. Here's how I did it.
Sure.
There's stories from guests. Here's how other people are doing it. It's not just me. Here's some other people.
Yeah.
There's hands-on stuff. So we do a resiliency challenge. So we take 2 weeks.
So do we. It's called our summer program.
Yeah, right. It's actually 4 months long for you.
Yeah.
It's only 2 weeks for my class. And I assign them a bunch of ridiculous challenges. Like, if there's someone you've been afraid to ask on a date.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Go do it.
That's such a good idea.
Go try to go to Walmart and try to get on the PA system. Go try to get on your local radio show. Go order a pizza at Starbucks.
Wow.
Just like, it's meant to get you comfortable with getting turned down.
That's awesome.
So one, they get out of the class and go do, that's something. We do a trade up challenge.
Yep.
So I've had students start with, they've started with, I give them a little bit more.
Okay,
so they started with a $5 Amazon gift card, and I've had students in a week and a half trade up to a used car.
That's crazy. I love that.
So there's some fun things. The big one is, and it's expensive to do, but it's worth it. It's the highlight of the class. It's a role play. So I hire actors to play the role of clients.
That's so sweet.
They prep. I get them ready. They have a sit-down sales conversation with clients.
Yeah.
And a quarter of the classes are role plays with their peers. So they assume the role of the buyer and the seller.
Love that.
And I throw them out into breakout rooms. They can't fall out of the role.
Yeah.
And they have, as close to a real sales conversation as you can.
Dang. Yeah, that's a big part. I mean, one of the things that we learn with our sales reps is they can know everything, inside and out as far as the technical knowledge goes and our sales cycle that we teach. But then we say, okay, cool. Stand up in front of the sales meeting and
go do it.
And do it.
Go do it.
And it's funny, the connection between the brain and the mouth doesn't always line up perfectly. So it's that repetition. That's so cool that that's happening. Sales demos are happening in classrooms. That just makes you smile and makes me happy.
It's the knowing doing gap.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can know it.
There it is.
But to actually do it is hard.
Yeah.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
Like role plays never don't suck. No one comes to class like, I'm so fired up for this role play. If they do, they're a different breed. They should go to you.
Yeah.
But like most people aren't like, I love doing role
Yeah.
plays.
No, they can be cheesy, they can be weird, but they're so important.
So important.
Yeah.
So important.
And so how do we make this a movement? Like it is at Western and it is at Ivey. You've talked about how many students want to be a part of this. 200 students showing up to a class. 200 more could probably get into your lectures if you had the availability. So how does this become something that exists at other universities? Because it's undoubtedly such an important skill set to have, and something that's so important for young people to learn so that they can have a better life and a better career. So how does it grow and expand?
Sales has a marketing problem, right?
Nice.
Like there's a stigma still attached to it, but here's how I try to kill it in my classes. I want to show students that here's someone that's done it that is wildly successful as a pure salesperson. So say you're an economic animal and that's your main motivation. You just want to make money and pay off your student debt. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. That was me. I was pretty motivated to just pay off my debt and get going as a young person.
Yep, same.
Not good or bad, whatever, but I was pretty motivated.
Yep.
So I bring in people who are, not unassuming, but like sales reps at some good companies who at, 25 to 30 years old are making $500,000. I'm proud to say that, I have students that have come work for me that for better or worse, didn't go back to finish their degree and have made a couple $100,000 a year.
Yes. That's a weird one for us too. When we have somebody who is doing so well that they want to drop out, we're offering an Australia program this winter. So some of our top producers are headed over there, and it's a tricky one for us because we obviously believe that, finishing their university degree is a good one, but we also sometimes expose them to, what they're capable of in terms of their earning potential. Sometimes they start looking at their school and starting to think like, hey, is my time really best spent here? So what is your thought on that? Like, can it be a deterrent to an entrepreneur, to a top producer to continue? Like, are they learning why they shouldn't start their business? Like, I felt like one of the advantages I had was that I studied education and that I didn't have a formal business education, because there's no way in heck I would have decided to start my pest control company when I was 24 years old, never been to the state of Texas before, if I knew what I should know before going into that. So can that be a restrainer or a barrier to young entrepreneurs or top producing salespeople?
I mean, I think I've seen your signage around here. I've got the tattoo for it. I think agency is key, right? Like you control your own life. Sure. If you want to say that you're not someone's not an entrepreneur because it got beat out of them at school,
they aren't an entrepreneur,
right? Like I think you're going to find a way.
Nice.
Do we today have the perfect curriculum for someone to take their company from nothing to success? I don't know. I think we're doing more and more to support the students who see that as a viable path. But I think entrepreneurs are going to find their way.
Totally.
So if we have relevant and useful programming for them, for those that want to choose that path, I think that's good. I think we can show them, look, here's a bunch of students that are doing it. The biggest thing that I think the schools are good at is the accountability. Like I have a class where it's called New Venture Creation. I'm overseeing one this year called New Venture Project. And if you literally just say, all right, you've got a course, the grade comes from whether you were able to start the business or not.
Dang.
You present with the results that you generated in 3 months' time. I'm here to support you. Here's a mentor.
And
go.
Are you saying that exists right now? Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And so tell me about the other course offerings, because I didn't know about that one. That's so freaking cool.
Yeah. So there's we've got tons at the school, but the three or four that I'm involved in, one is called New Venture Creation. Good. I don't know that I need to unpack you start a new business.
Wow.
One is called Hustle and Grit.
Nice.
It's basically everything that I wish I would have learned in business school about entrepreneurship.
Heck yeah.
In business school.
Yeah.
So we talk about motivation. We talk about how to have hard conversations. It's a lot.
Love that.
It's really good. Students love it. It's actually, the premise of the course is that the most important startup you'll ever operate is you, like your life as a startup.
Yeah.
So it's apply the principles of entrepreneurship to your life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a personal development course disguised as an entrepreneurship course.
Dang.
But it's awesome. I love teaching that class.
So-
And then Sales Foundations. That's my third one.
Sales Foundations, cool. And Sales Foundations, like what is that curriculum? Like do you have, like we teach a sales cycle. It's
Yep.
pretty simple. It says introduction, create need, meet need, close, resolve concerns, and then go through it again. So it's very simple, and I don't know if we could make that a 4-month course. So what are the foundations of sales that you teach?
So it starts with just on trying to kill stigma right out of the gate.
Yeah.
This is what
Nice.
you think sales is about, being charming.
Yeah.
It's actually about being trustworthy and demonstrating capability.
Yeah.
You think it's for extroverts. The research shows that actually it's not. It's
gonna
for,
ask you about
it's for
that.
ambiverts. It's people who are able to flex both.
Yeah.
So I try to kill out of the gate. Here's what you think sales is. Here's what sales actually is. That's what we start with.
Yeah.
Then I kick them out of the classroom to go do it. So we do trade up challenge. So
Love
go
that.
experience it
Yeah, that's
yourself,
fun,
see what
dude.
it's all about.
Yeah.
They have some fun with it.
Yeah.
We talk about, I think at the core of sales is 2 things. What is it that you're selling and why is it better than everything else? You got to have a good answer for that. 2, who is it for?
Yeah.
Who are you selling to?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we get into some sales process related stuff.
Cool.
How do you run a great sales meeting? How do you open? How do
There
you
it is.
close? All that stuff.
Awesome. I love that. So yeah, I mean, it really is the foundations of sales, everything that they know to be able to successfully produce. What are some of the foundational skills for entrepreneurship? Is it sales? And what are the other ones that go into, because I'm sure you can identify some students in your classes where you're just like, dang, this kid is going to build something.
Yeah.
What are those characteristics?
Yeah. So I think there are some, call them leading indicators of future success that you can see in students from pretty early on. There are those who talk about it. There are those who do it.
Yeah.
And I when I think about meetings with students, some meetings I'll call inertia meetings. They're like not moving and they want me to get the ball rolling for them. Where do I start? Who can I meet? Those are fine. Those are, 50% hit rate, whether they turn into anything.
Yeah.
I like the momentum meetings where students are like, I think I want to be an entrepreneur because I did this thing and I'm working on this thing and I've already reached out to have these conversations. Could you introduce me to Brendan at Vantage? They're like, oh man, they've done their homework. Like they've got momentum already. So I think one is there are students who talk about it. There are those who are doing it, who are being about it. I think that's one.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think this is maybe a different take, but I think attention nowadays is a differentiator. Like you and I are sitting here without phones and are like talking to each other. That's actually giving someone your full attention is not a given nowadays. And doing that in a sales conversation actually is a differentiator for you for sure. So actually someone who's able to put the distractions aside, and whether it's figure out the thing that needs to be done to grow a business and then do the thing without constantly being distracted. That can be taught, but I like that. And then the 2 most important things, I think, building and selling.
Yeah.
So the part of the early days, like actually going out and having customer conversations, you can't do it from in the building or on your butt. Like you have to actually go out and talk to people outside of the building.
Yeah.
And so seeing people get over that fear of talking and getting outside of the building and getting rejected.
Yeah.
I think those are some good ones.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you knew that I had to bring it up, but you've actually gone out there and pounded the pavement and put some knuckles on doors, which I love to hear.
Yeah.
Tell us about that experience and what you learned from it.
So the guy that I did it with I hired right out of school to work with me at Intellitix. He had a background in door-to-door sales.
Nice.
And came to work for me at Intellitix. So a guy that sold in Australia who was selling door-to-door, it's like HVAC systems or something.
Wow.
And came to Ivey. I recruited him as a summer intern and he crushed it.
Dang.
Door-to-door sales to B2B tech sales, crushed it. This is a guy who made a ton of money. He did really well.
Yeah.
He moved on from Intellitix. I left Intellitix and started a home and commercial security business. And I wanted to see, like B2B sales in the music industry and tech industry, how hard can door-to-door sales be? You know, I'd never done it.
Yeah.
And so I actually brought him back because he had done door-to-door sales. We linked back up. He came to London for 2-3 days and we knocked on hundreds of doors ourselves in the dead of winter.
I love that.
It's hard.
Oh yeah.
Like it's hard. I mean, like anything, it's a muscle, right? Resilience is like a muscle. It gets easier.
Yep.
But really good learning for me. B2B sales is not B2C sales.
Yeah.
But if you can cut it door to door, like when I think about the students who wanted to work for me everyone wants to work at a startup, thinks it's sexy.
Yeah.
What I need is someone who can actually help me drive results.
Yeah.
To be able to say, you know, I went from nothing to driving 10, 20, $100,000 in sales in a 4-month time period.
Heck yeah.
You're doing the thing, man. You're demonstrating that you're able to do the thing. Like the people that are building up this skill on your team, these are incredible hires for these companies.
Well, hey, I was going to ask you about that. So Vantage is for some a career journey and something that they actually do long term. And we tricked them into, again, considering this as something that they got into as a student, but they, decided to stay in it full time. But for those who do use Vantage as a stepping stone and they want to go into tech sales, they want to go into B2B, what advice or do you have for them to make that leap? It's interesting that you did it. Like most of the time, somebody would knock doors before they did high ticket corporate sales, but more commonly, somebody's going to knock doors and then move on to, well, we find a lot of our reps in tech sales or whatever, or B2B. What advice do you have for them to make that jump into the professional world and taking what they've learned here, because you're fairly familiar with what we do, and applying that to their career?
The biggest thing is what you're trying to do in that interview is to answer the question, why should I hire you over anybody else? Mm-hmm. And the best way to do that is to show me that you're capable or that you've done it in the past. Mm-hmm. And so some people will say, well, I ran a club at university, and so some experiences there are relatable to sales.
Yep.
Okay, maybe I'll buy that.
Yeah.
I am a good presenter at business school, and I think that has relatability to sales. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool, I'll buy that. I've done sales and knocked on 10,000 doors and drove results, and here are the numbers.
Yeah.
You've done the thing.
Yeah.
So I think their differentiator is demonstrating their capability. They've actually done this thing, and you got to highlight that in the interview.
And are there specific opportunities that you see that are big in Canada now for talented new grads as far as like their career option goes in tech or in other spaces? Like where do you advise they start looking?
If you ask my background's in tech, but this applies to any business. You ask any business, hey, is revenue growth a priority for you? Find me a company find me someone that says no.
Yeah.
So if you're capable of helping that company grow revenue, I think that's interesting. You'll be interesting to that company. Mm-hmm. That said, tech sales, B2B sales, especially with AI, is changing.
Yeah.
So you'll need to, I think, proving that you've built up your resilience muscle and that you can drive results is awesome. Mm-hmm. I can focus on the activities that actually matter. I'm disciplined. I know how this works. I can talk to people. I have the attention. Like I'm good that way. Mm-hmm. You probably need to augment that with, how does that translate to the way that sales is changing? Mm-hmm. Can you do it from behind a computer? Can you do it over the phone? Can you prove that you're capable of, you're a learning machine, that no matter whether it's leveraging AI, whether it's knocking on doors, whether it's hosting webinars, like the key to all of it is this is all going to change. I'm a learning machine and I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I've done it and I'll figure out whatever the next thing is, I think is a great combo.
All right, man, we got to talk more about this Hustle and Grit course. Boy, I wish they had that at the University of Regina in my heyday. What is up with that? Tell us more about that course. What do you teach in that? How do you teach Hustle and Grit? I thought that was, something you could only learn from the School of Hard Knocks. I didn't know you could learn that at university.
So yes and no.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the best learning is going to be going out there and doing it. Yeah. One of the biggest parts of that class is teaching your ability to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Love that.
So resilience, I think, is made up of 3 parts: cause, capacity, and capability. Cause is why you doing all this in the first place. If you don't have a clear why, everything is hard. And if you don't have a reason why you're doing it, you're going to lose steam. For some people, that's money. Some people, that's pride. You got something to prove. Some people, there's a cause that you care about. I don't know. Parents are pushing you. I don't know. People have different reasons, but you got to have a cause. So that's one. Capacity. We talked about this earlier. You need to have the capacity to do hard things. You got to take care of yourself. That's getting sleep. That's eating well. That's working out. That's getting outside. If you're not doing those things, it makes it infinitely harder to do anything hard.
So the coffee cigarette diet is out in the sales world?
It is. I mean, it should be out. I think I tricked myself when I was younger into thinking that I could, go out and then show up at work the next day. But I think now I see a more direct correlation, and the science proves this out. If you listen to any of Huberman's stuff, the way that you perform today is a direct correlation to what you did the day before and the day before that. So we have a podcast today. I went to bed early. I drank a ton of water. I was outside. I worked out this morning. If you want to be on, you got to treat yourself well. And I think I tricked myself when I was younger into thinking that didn't matter.
Totally.
It does. You might not notice it. But like, imagine how much better you could be if you were 20% better by treating yourself right. So we spent some time on what does treating yourself right look like, and how can you develop some habits to do that. And then the last one is the capability of building resilience. Resilience is a muscle. You only build a muscle by working that muscle. And so again, I kick students out of the classroom to do a bunch of ridiculous hard things. Turns out, when you do something ridiculous, no one gives a shit anyway. And they show up after 2 weeks and they're like, wow, the surprising thing was I did all these silly things and no one cares.
Wow. That's amazing. Dude, I just love that. And is that your most popular course, would you say?
Not by volume, because I restrict it to only 70 seats.
Got it.
But students at Ivey they bid on classes with points. So it's the course that has the highest number of bid points. So students use up like 3/4 of their points to get into that class.
Well, I would imagine you wouldn't want the class to be too large, because that would maybe water it down just a little bit.
And I bring in gangster guests. We've had Chris Hadfield, the astronaut. We've had Loud Luxury in. We've had, Hannah Simone. We've had just
holy crap,
really cool guests.
Wow, that's so cool, man. What an opportunity for students. Like, again, that's just, as you said it earlier, edutainment. Education and entertainment. But not only is it that, it's again, just I imagine what they take away from that course, and imagine the parts that they remember about university, I love that. Well, I want to go back to this. I just think that this needs to be more national. And I think it's amazing that the Ivey students get to take advantage of this, but how does this spread? Like, how does this become more popular at other universities? The need is there. Students want it. How does it break out to be something that's more mainstream?
Like, all of education, I think there will be changes in education over the next little bit. I think sales has largely been seen as a vocational thing. It's something you learn either by doing it or in Canada, we have universities and colleges. It's a more college-focused vocational training thing. But I think as we get more into these, like, the biggest, most high-stakes, most important jobs in the world are about sales. They're about communications. They're about persuasion and influence and all of those things that make up sales. So I think universities are starting to come around to it. There's some resistance there, and there's reasons that is. You can cut this if you want to. This is maybe radio for two here.
Tell
for a
them like
second.
it is.
But the way that universities are structured, most professors want to get tenure. Think of it like a promotion. If you're a sales director, you want to be VP. Getting tenure is like becoming a vice president. That's what they most would aspire to have. The way that you get tenure is a bunch of different things. Be a great colleague, be a good teacher. And a big weight is produce research. your own research that gets peer reviewed and published in these top tier journals. There are very few top tier, I don't know if there's any top tier sales focused research journals. So if you want tenure, and your ability to get tenure depends on publishing in these top tier journals, and there's only one sales journal, really to optimize or maximize your chances of success in getting tenure, it doesn't make a lot of sense to focus on sales. So the system isn't really set up to pump out sales focused professors.
That makes sense.
That said, I think, like I said, sales, universities and education in general is changing. Is the student the product, or is the student the customer?
Dang.
I think historically we've thought about students as the products. We need to mold them and make them into contributing members of society that think independently, and I agree with that. However, I think we also need to think of them as a customer. If you're spending 50 grand to get a degree,
that's where my mind went, was the money.
I think I got to make you useful to a company and give you the skills that you need to be successful. So I think you're going to start to see this move toward vocational. I don't know if that's the right word, but education that not only shapes students and builds them into the types of people that are capable of doing hard things, like the product. They're also the customer. And I think we have to make sure that if they're spending that money on a degree, that they're coming out, and that when someone like you or me hires them into a senior role, you're like, oof, wow, you learned that in school? Wow.
Yeah. I have been underwhelmed. Sorry to our recent new grad hires, but just with what they pulled from their business school sometimes, and the application of it in their entry level management job, it's usually, there's not a ton that they're drawing from. In fact, I think we tend to lean more on what their summer job experience was.
For sure. I call them 1,000 horsepower engines with no traction control. It's like super smart. Super motivated. But like, how do you direct that energy? What do you do that's most important? How do you do those things well? That's where they just need the okay, you're a good general purpose smart person who's motivated. Now let's teach you on the job the skills that you need to be successful. I think universities are going to start to take on more of that.
I love that. You talked about knocking the stigma off of sales. Imagine doing that with door-to-door sales.
Ooh, yeah.
What advice do you have for us at Vantage to get rid of that stigma surrounding not only sales, but again, going and knocking doors, which has, a terrible reputation?
Yeah. It's funny.
Finally stumped you.
Yeah. Well, I think sales, we think of salespeople as, so I'll rewind. This was maybe 2 years ago. We're sitting at the dinner table, 5:15, knock on the door. You know who it is, right? Most people are like,
oh, great.
Here we go. A salesperson. Not me. I'm like, let's go. It's a salesperson. All right. Let's talk to them. So I'm excited. And I think if they show up and act the way that we in pop culture have been told salespeople act, that keeps the stigma alive, right? If you become pushy, persuasive, over the top, trying to force your way in, that's going to keep it alive. If sales is helping, I would prefer people take the tack of, hey, we're from Vantage Pest Control. We help people solve these 3 problems. Are those problems that you experience? If they are, there's no one better than us to help you solve them. Here are our solutions. If these are not problems that you experience, tell me to go away.
I love that.
That's essentially the tack that I take in teaching my classes. I'm here to help. We do it really well for people like this. Are you a person like this? And if not, I'm out of here.
Cool. Yeah, no, that's great advice. I love that. And one of the things that we teach is just being a messenger of information. And one of the things that they talk about, a lot of our sales leaders talk about, is an indifference to the customer purchasing the service or not. Presenting it as a matter of fact, talking about the facts of the service, the features and the benefits, but not in a persuasive, pushy, needy way. And if they can, master that, they sell more. And if they sound like a salesman, they don't sell very much. If they sound like a bug guy or girl, then they sell more. So, okay, very cool. Well, hey, again, I've taken up a lot of your time, and again, I can't tell you how much it means to kind of just hear from somebody who's, teaching at a university in Canada. And again, I just think that you're giving so much to students. And, again, that's a small part of what we try and do here is just, provide a sales education. What advice would you have for me as somebody who undertakes, teaching university student sales? What can I do, or what different things might you suggest that we try here at Vantage to create better salespeople?
There are all different flavors of sales.
Yeah.
Doing door-to-door sales is a mix of art and science. You personally probably have knocked on more doors than, you're the 0.0001% of people in the country probably, right? So I'm not going to tell you any tips and tricks that you don't already know through doing it yourself. But what I would say is to attract some of the best and brightest, I think we need to let people know that sales is an incredibly valuable skill to learn.
Yeah.
That is universally applicable to any career that you choose to do. That it can be an incredibly lucrative summer opportunity.
Yeah.
If you just want to go heads down and make money and pay off student debt, it can be that. It can also be an incredibly lucrative forever career if you want to stick with sales forever. But if not, the skills that you're going to learn, even in doing it for a few summers, are going to be skills that you're going to take with you no matter what you do. That's the stigma that we got to kill. That's how you're going to get the best talent. Wow.
Well, I think that's a pretty good note to close on. I love that. Well said. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Eric Janssen, for being here today. And guys, I hope you've enjoyed, again, just learning from somebody who's really on the front lines of teaching it and has, again, experienced it himself and lived it. So no better teacher than somebody who's done it himself. So appreciate you coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Let me know if there's any way that Vantage or any of our sales reps can get involved with, your programs or programs like it. I think that the way to get these things happening at your schools, guys, is just for you to use Eric as an example of what he's been able to do and accomplish at Ivey. And so I think that there's a model for it now, and now it's just a matter of expanding it to other schools. So that concludes another episode of the Opportunity Knocks podcasts. Thanks for listening, guys.